My mother slid a pale blue folder across the conference table and tapped the signature line as if I were a child learning where to write my name. "We went over it slowly, Bate," she said. "This is the sale of your share. It solves everything." Across from her, my brother Miles was already spending my money. He had a yellow legal pad covered with arrows, loan balances, and the words Riverstone Rescue circled twice. My father kept his eyes on the table. The buyer's representative waited with a pen in her hand. What none of them knew was that my phone had turned their last family meeting into 43 pages of live captions. The transcript included the sentence my mother had spoken 3 feet from me while I sat beside her. "She won't understand enough to stop us." I placed the transcript on top of the blue folder. Then I asked the buyer to read page 27 before anyone signed anything. My mother's face changed before the first page was turned. "I am Bate Calder." I was 47 years old when my family decided that losing most of my hearing also meant losing the right to understand my own life. They were wrong about both things. Before I tell you how that room went quiet, tell me what you would have done. Would you have confronted them the moment you learned the truth, or would you have let them finish building the lie first? 18 months earlier, I could still hear rain on the skylight above my drafting table. I could hear the low motor in the office refrigerator and the soft click my dog made when her nails crossed the hardwood. I could hear my mother call from another room and know, from one breath, whether she was worried or annoyed. Then I woke on a Tuesday with the world tilted to the left. The bedroom spun when I sat up. My right ear felt packed with water, and my left carried a thin electronic whistle that would not stop. By lunch, voices sounded as if they were coming through 2 closed doors. By dinner, I could see my father's mouth moving across the kitchen table, but I understood only every 4th word. The emergency room doctor called it sudden sensory neural hearing loss. A virus may have inflamed the nerves, it may have been autoimmune. The exact cause never became clear. The result did. Steroids brought back a little sound on my left side. They did almost nothing on my right. Within 3 weeks, I was measuring my days by audiology appointments, caption settings, and how much energy it took to follow one conversation. I had been an architect for 22 years. My work depended on listening, but not in the way people assumed. I listened to what clients wanted. I listened to contractors explain why a wall could not go where the plan said it should. I listened for the fear hiding inside a budget argument. After I lost most of my hearing, I learned new ways to do all of that. I used hearing aids. I used live captions on my phone and laptop. I asked people to face me. I asked them not to cover their mouths. I asked them to say one thing at a time. Most people adjusted in less than a week. My office did, and my clients did. My family adjusted in a different direction. They began speaking about me as if I had become fragile, then they began speaking for me. Finally, they began speaking around me. At first, it looked like kindness. My father repeated restaurant specials before I asked. Miles ordered for me when a server approached. My mother touched my wrist before she spoke, then used the bright, careful voice people use with frightened children. "I am hard of hearing, Mom," I told her. "I am not confused." "I know that," she said, but her mouth tightened in the way it always did when she believed I had corrected her in public. With my mother, kindness lasted only as long as she controlled its shape. My parents, Warren and Elaine Calder, bought Laurel Ridge when I was 26. Back then, it was not a retreat center. It was an abandoned apple packing house on 12 acres outside Asheville, with a rusted roof and blackberry vines growing through the loading dock. My father had spent 30 years selling commercial insurance. My mother had organized every fundraiser she could join, and retirement made them restless. They wanted a place for weddings and retreats. Miles wanted cabins. He was 30 then and had recently discovered the word hospitality. He drew 6 rectangles on a napkin and called it a development plan. I was the only person at the table who knew the roof was failing. The septic system was too small, and the county would not approve overnight guests without a second access road. I also knew the building could be beautiful. I spent 10 months on the renovation plans. I found grants for preserving the original timber frame. I negotiated with the fire marshal. I drove to the property before sunrise to meet inspectors, then went to my regular job and worked until dark. When the bank refused to lend enough, I put $180,000 of my own savings into the project. That money bought the new roof and the commercial kitchen. It also bought my place in the ownership agreement. I owned 40% of Laurel Ridge Retreats. My parents owned 30% together. Miles owned the remaining 30%. The agreement named me managing member because the permits, insurance, and renovation contracts already ran through my office. My mother hated the phrase managing member. She thought it sounded as if I outranked the family. She preferred to say we all owned it equally in spirit. The percentages mattered when the bills came. They mattered when a boiler failed. They mattered when Miles wanted to add luxury cabins without a drainage study. They mattered whenever someone needed my signature. They mattered less when the center began making money. Laurel Ridge grew slowly. That was deliberate. We hosted small weddings and planning retreats while keeping the original beams, stone fireplace, and long windows facing the ridge. I designed every guest room. My mother selected the quilts and told everyone she had created the atmosphere. My father handled insurance and vendor renewals. Miles managed sales for 3 years, then moved on to a cabin project of his own. The person who truly kept Laurel Ridge running was Nora Reyes, our operations director. Nora could reset a tripped kitchen breaker, calm an angry bride, and remember which guest was allergic to walnuts. She spoke to me normally after my hearing changed. She faced me. She waited for the captions when a room was noisy. If I missed something, she repeated it without adding volume or pity. For years, Laurel Ridge had been the one place where my family and I worked well together. We argued, but the work gave the arguments edges. A permit was approved or it was not. A room was booked or it was empty. A budget either balanced or it did not. After my hearing loss, those edges blurred. My mother began calling Nora instead of me about decisions. My father signed 2 small vendor renewals without sending them for review. Miles started appearing at the property again, usually with a tape measure and a plan nobody had requested. The first time I challenged it, my mother smiled. "We're taking a little off your plate. I did not ask you to. You do not have to ask for help, Bate. That is not help, that is access." She looked hurt. My father looked tired. Miles looked amused. There was a pattern in my family. My mother created the pressure. My father softened the words. Miles collected the benefit, then all 3 waited for me to become the unreasonable one. Before my hearing loss, I often gave in because the fight seemed larger than the decision. Afterward, giving in felt dangerous. Each small choice they made for me taught them that the next one might be allowed too. I changed the passwords on the vendor portal. I required 2 written approvals for contracts over $25,000. I sent a calm email reminding everyone that the ownership agreement had not changed with my hearing. My father replied, "Understood." Miles replied with a thumbs-up symbol. My mother called me, "You made us sound like employees. You are owners. Owners follow the agreement. We are your parents. That is not a business role." The line went quiet. Silence had changed for me by then. It was no longer the absence of sound. It was a space where I had to decide whether someone had stopped speaking or simply turned away. My mother finally said, "You have become very rigid." I looked at the live words on my laptop. "You have become very rigid." I saved the transcript because it was attached to the meeting notes, not because I expected it to matter later. That was the first record. Miles's cabin project sat 14 miles north of Laurel Ridge. He called it Riverstone, although the property held only a seasonal creek and a steep road. He had borrowed aggressively. First for the land, then for grading, then for prefabricated cabins that arrived before the county approved their foundations. Every delay cost him money. Every new loan was supposed to solve the last one. I knew only the outline because Miles stopped showing me numbers after I warned him not to sign a personal guarantee on a short-term bridge loan. "You always see the collapse before the building," he told me. "That is part of being an architect. It is part of being afraid." He said it lightly. That was another family habit. A warning became fear if it came from me. The same warning became wisdom if my father repeated it 2 weeks later. By the first winter after my hearing loss, Riverstone had 4 unfinished cabins and 1 completed model unit. Miles posted photographs at sunset and called the project nearly open. My father called it a temporary cash flow problem. My mother called it a family opportunity. Nora called it what it was. "He is coming here more because his project is in trouble," she told me one morning. We were standing in the Laurel Ridge kitchen while a delivery crew rolled in boxes of glassware. Nora faced me beneath the bright ceiling lights. Her words appeared on my phone almost as quickly as she spoke. "What has he asked you for?" I said. "Guest lists. Vendor rates, your weekend occupancy. He wanted to know whether our insurance allowed outside investors to inspect the property." That last question stayed with me. "Did you give him anything?" "No, I told him to ask you." "Did he?" Nora shook her head. That afternoon, I emailed all 3 family owners. I asked whether anyone was discussing financing, investment, or a sale involving Laurel Ridge. My father answered first. "Nothing formal." Miles answered an hour later, just exploring options. My mother did not answer at all. I scheduled an ownership meeting for the following Monday. My mother postponed it because of a dental appointment. Miles moved it again because he had a contractor dispute. My father asked whether we could wait until everyone felt less tense. 3 weeks passed. During those weeks, little things changed at Laurel Ridge. A man in a navy overcoat toured the west lawn with Miles. My mother told Nora he was a potential wedding client. He never looked at the ceremony space. He photographed the service road, the retaining wall, and the electrical panels. A woman from Blue Veil Hospitality called the office and asked for our trailing revenue report. Nora transferred her to me. The woman sounded surprised. "I was told the family had authorized preliminary review," she said. "Who told you that?" There was a pause. "I may have misunderstood." "Who gave you this number?" Another pause. Then the call ended politely. Blue Veil owned 3 mountain inns and a conference property near Boone. They were not wedding clients. They were buyers. No financial or operational information may be shared with any potential buyer without written authorization from all members. My father replied, "Of course." Miles did not reply. My mother arrived at my studio the next day with soup. She had made chicken and rice, the meal she brought whenever she wanted an argument to begin under the cover of care. She placed the container in my refrigerator and looked around the office as if checking whether I still lived competently. "You embarrassed your brother," she said. "He gave business information to a buyer. He had a conversation. He toured the property with someone from Blue Veil. They are respected people. That does not answer me." My mother sat across from my desk. She folded her hands. When she spoke again, she shaped every word too carefully. "Miles is under pressure. I know. He needs options. Laurel Ridge is not his private option. He owns part of it. So do I." She nodded as if I had finally reached the lesson she wanted to teach. "Yes, and your part is worth a great deal now." There it was, not an accusation, not yet, just a door opening 1 inch. I asked whether Blue Veil had made an offer. She looked toward the drafting table instead of at me. "Your father handles those details." "Mom, we are only talking. About selling Laurel Ridge? About protecting the family." Those were different sentences. She treated them as identical. I turned my laptop so the live transcript faced her. Her last words sat in black type on a white screen. "Protecting the family from what?" She stood and smoothed her coat. "You are tired. We can talk when this feels less overwhelming." She left the soup behind. I did not eat it. That evening, I printed the conversation, not because I planned to use it against her, but because captions made people honest after tone and guilt had faded. The page ended with the phrase, "less overwhelming." I wrote the date at the top and placed it in a plain gray folder. The first record had become a file. The ownership meeting finally happened on a Sunday afternoon in January. My mother insisted on holding it at Laurel Ridge because, in her words, business felt friendlier around the old dining table. The center was empty between retreats, rain pressed against the long windows, the heat clicked on and off beneath the floor. That sound was below the range I could hear, but I felt the faint vibration through my shoes. My hearing aids had gone back to the clinic for an adjustment. A software update had made voices sound sharp and metallic. I told my family before the meeting that I would use live captions and needed one speaker at a time. My mother said, "Of course, sweetheart." She placed my phone on a small stand in the middle of the table. The caption app was open, a green line moved when anyone spoke. For the first 20 minutes, everyone behaved. My father discussed insurance renewal. Miles reviewed 2 repairs. My mother asked about spring bookings. They paused for the captions. They faced me, then Miles mentioned Blue Veil. "They have real interest," he said. "Not curiosity, interest." My father cleared his throat. My mother looked at me. I asked what had been shared. "Only public numbers," Miles said. "Revenue is not public. It is not a state secret either. It belongs to the company. So do we." I watched the words appear. Miles leaned back before I finished reading them. He said Blue Veil wanted all of Laurel Ridge, not a minority position. Their preliminary number was just under $2 million. It sounded large until I divided it by the property value, the business income, and the cost of rebuilding anything similar. "It is low," I said. "It is immediate," Miles answered. "Why do we need immediate?" Nobody spoke. I looked from one face to the next. My father's mouth moved first, but Miles spoke over him. The captions tangled both voices into fragments. I raised my hand. "One at a time." My mother sighed, not loudly. She thought I could not hear it. I saw the movement in her shoulders. Miles started again. Riverstone's bridge lender had moved up a review. He needed to show new capital or lose the loan. If he lost the loan, the lender could call his personal guarantee. "How much?" I asked. $380,000. The number sat on the screen. My father said the family needed to consider every asset. "Laurel Ridge is not an emergency fund for Riverstone," I said. "No one said it was," my mother replied. "Then why are we discussing a sale during his loan crisis? We are discussing choices." "For whom?" My mother's mouth flattened. Miles tapped the table. My father rubbed the bridge of his nose. The meeting broke apart after that, not officially, emotionally. Miles stood and walked toward the windows. My father followed him. My mother began gathering coffee cups, though none were empty. They turned away from the phone stand, then they started talking to one another. At first, I assumed the conversation had paused. Their mouths were no longer facing me. I caught only pieces through the room and none through my hearing. The captions kept moving. The phone microphone was better than my ears. It caught my mother near the sideboard. "We cannot drag this out," my father answered. "She has to agree." Miles said something the app marked unclear, then a full sentence appeared. "If Bates sells her 40%, that covers the note and leaves her plenty." My mother replied, "She will never agree if you make it about your debt." Then my father, "What are we making it about?" My mother did not hesitate. Her health, less responsibility, a clean exit. I stared at the screen. The 3 of them were standing less than 12 feet away. My mother's back was to me. Miles was drawing something on his yellow pad. My father glanced over once, saw me looking down, and continued. The transcript rolled upward. Miles said Blue Veil could pay $720,000 for my interest if the full sale followed within a year. He said they would route $400,000 into a family stabilization account. That account would loan the money to Riverstone. My money would rescue his project. The rest would be presented to me as a generous retirement cushion. My father asked how they could direct my proceeds. Miles said, "She signs the distribution authorization with the sale." My mother said, "Then do not call it that when you explain it." My throat tightened, but my hands became very still. This was not a vague conversation about options. They had a price. They had a buyer. They had a path for my money. They had language designed to make me sign without understanding the purpose. My father lowered his voice. The phone still caught him. "She is going to read it," my mother answered. "Not if we summarize it first." Then came the sentence I would later place on top of the blue folder. "She won't understand enough to stop us." The app printed the words cleanly. No unclear marker, no missing phrase. I looked at my mother's reflection in the dark window. She was not angry. She was practical. That hurt more. I could have stood then. I could have turned the phone around and asked her to read what she had said. Instead, I kept my eyes on the screen. Miles asked whether I would need separate counsel. My mother said family counsel was enough. My father said he did not like that. Miles reminded him the loan review was in less than a month. Then Nora entered through the kitchen door carrying a stack of linen invoices. The three of them stopped speaking. She looked at me first. "Everything okay?" I nodded once because I did not trust my voice. My mother returned to the table with a bright smile. "We were just taking a break." The caption app wrote the sentence. I said, "I think we should end the meeting." Miles turned back toward me. "We have not finished." "I have." My mother touched my arm. "Bait, nobody is trying to rush you." Her hand felt warm through my sleeve. I moved my arm away. I said the meeting is over. That time, I did not need the captions to understand her face. She looked offended. I drove home through hard rain. I did not turn on music. I could not hear it well enough to enjoy it, and I did not want another sound competing with the words in my head. She won't understand enough to stop us. At home, I exported the transcript. The app included timestamps, speaker guesses, and several unclear sections. It also included every complete sentence that mattered, 43 pages. I printed them at my studio the next morning. The machine warmed slowly. Page after page slid into the tray. I highlighted nothing at first. I read the whole conversation. There were smaller cruelties I had missed. Miles called me difficult. My mother said I had become suspicious since losing my hearing. My father said I was still sharp, and my mother answered, "Sharp is not the same as steady." There were also signs of hesitation. My father objected 3 times. Each time he stopped after my mother pushed back. That did not make him innocent. It made him present. I highlighted the exact plan: sale price, distribution account, Riverstone loan. Health explanation, no separate attorney, summary before documents. Then I reached the sentence again. She won't understand enough to stop us. I drew one yellow line beneath it. That was the moment my grief became useful. Until then, I had wanted an explanation. After reading the transcript, I wanted clarity. Those are not the same thing. An explanation can be shaped to protect the person who caused the harm. Clarity does not ask who feels comfortable. It asks what happened, what can happen next, and what must be closed before anyone tries again. I scanned the transcript to a secure folder. I mailed 1 copy to myself. I placed the printed pages in the gray file. Then I called an attorney. The attorney's name was Lee Morgan. She handled small business disputes and commercial property agreements. Her office was quiet, well-lit, and arranged so I could see her face without turning. I gave her the ownership agreement first, then I gave her the transcript. She read for almost an hour. When she finished, she closed the gray folder and asked 1 question. "Have you signed anything since your hearing changed?" "No." "Have you given anyone authority to sign for you?" "No." "Has anyone told Blue Veil that you approved a sale?" "I do not know," Lee nodded. The good news is simple. They cannot sell your interest without your signature. They cannot direct your proceeds without your signature. They cannot treat hearing loss as incapacity. I had known those things. Hearing them from someone outside my family still loosened something in my chest. The bad news? I asked. They may already have made representations in your name. We need to find out how far the lie traveled. She suggested a restrained first step. I would send a written notice to the other owners. It would state that I had not approved any sale, financing, or distribution involving my interest. It would require all outside communications to be copied to me. No accusations yet, I said, not unless you want the fight now. I want the facts first. Then let them answer a clean question. I wrote the notice that afternoon. I did not mention the transcript. I did not mention the sentence. I stated the ownership rules and asked for copies of every communication with Blue Veil. My father called within 20 minutes. I watched his name light up on the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, then I answered with captions on. "What is this letter?" he asked. "A request for records. You could have called." I did call. I also emailed. Nobody answered clearly. We are family. That is why I asked before involving anyone else. He exhaled. The captions wrote a long row of dots before his next words. Your mother feels accused. I did not accuse her. The tone did. The tone asked for documents. Bait, please do not turn this into something legal. Then send me the records. He said he would talk to my mother. He did not say he would send them. That evening, Miles texted me, "You are overreacting to a preliminary conversation." I replied with one question. "Did you tell Blue Veil I agreed to sell?" He did not answer. My mother waited until the next morning. Her message was longer. She wrote that fear could make ordinary family planning feel threatening. She said my recent medical changes had made everyone cautious. She said they were trying to create security for all of us. There was no denial. I called her. She answered in the car. The captions missed a few words because of road noise, but the meaning was clear. "Did you tell Blue Veil I wanted to sell?" I asked. "We said you were open to reducing responsibility." "I am not. You have said work is exhausting. Work is not the same as ownership. Your hearing is part of your work. So are my eyes. You are not trying to sell those." She went quiet. "Did you tell them I approved?" I asked again. We described the family's direction. "There is no family direction without me. You are making every word hostile." "No, I am asking whether you used my name." She ended the call. 2 hours later, my father emailed a single page. It was labeled Discussion Summary. It listed Blue Veil's interest, possible pricing, and the benefits of simplifying ownership. Under member response, it said all owners were receptive to further review. I stared at that line. The meeting date was the Sunday at Laurel Ridge. The same meeting where I had said the offer was low, asked why we needed an immediate sale, and ended the discussion. My father had signed the summary as company secretary. I forwarded it to Lee. She called me within 5 minutes. "This is not neutral," she said. "This is a representation. Can they say receptive means willing to listen? They can say anything. The question is what Blue Veil believes it means." We sent a correction to my parents and Miles. We also sent it to the Blue Veil address shown at the bottom of the summary. The response came from Sarah Kim, Director of Acquisitions. "Thank you for clarifying." Our team was provided minutes reflecting unanimous interest in a sale process. We will pause review until ownership status is confirmed. Minutes, not discussion summary. Minutes. I asked Sarah to send the document she had received. She did. It was 4 pages long. The first page looked similar to my father's summary. The remaining pages were different. They stated that I had expressed concern about continuing management because of a serious health condition. They stated that all owners supported a structured exit for me. They stated that I had authorized Miles to coordinate preliminary due diligence. At the bottom was a typed line. Bate Calder, present and verbally consenting. No signature, no quotation, no mention that I had ended the meeting. I read the pages twice. Then I opened the live transcript and searched for the word consenting. It appeared once. My mother had said, "We need to make the process feel like she is consenting, not surrendering." The family version had taken a word from their private plan and placed it under my name. I sent both documents to Lee. Her reply was only one sentence: "Do not speak to them alone now." My father came to my house after dinner. He stood on the porch holding his old leather document case. Rain had darkened the shoulders of his coat. I let him inside. He sat at my kitchen table. I placed my phone between us. The caption app opened automatically. He looked at it, then at me. "Do we need that?" "Yes. I can write things down. This is faster." He nodded, but he did not look comfortable. The phone had become a witness. He knew it before I said a word. I slid the blue veil minutes across the table. "Did you write these?" I prepared a summary. "These are not the pages you sent me. Elaine revised them. Did you sign the revised version?" He looked down. "Yes. Why does it say I verbally consented?" "We believed you were willing to explore." I said the offer was low. I asked why we were selling. I ended the meeting. "You were upset. That is not consent." "No." The word appeared alone on the screen. I waited. My father rubbed his thumb along the edge of the document case. He had done that when I was a child, and he was deciding whether to defend me or calm my mother. "Miles is in real trouble," he said, "so you used my name. We were trying to keep options open. You signed a false statement. I should not have signed it that way." "Why did you?" He looked toward the dark window. "Your mother said Blue Veil would walk if they thought the family was divided. The family is divided. We do not have to be. That depends on what you ask me to pretend." He flinched. I almost softened the sentence. That was how I had spent most of my life with him. I saw his discomfort and reduced my truth until he could bear it. This time, I let the words remain. He opened the leather case and removed a draft agreement. The cover page carried the Blue Veil logo. "They sent this before your correction," he said. "I brought it because you deserve to see everything." I took it. The purchase price for my interest was $720,000. The agreement described me as a withdrawing member. It also referred to a separate distribution instruction. "Where is the instruction?" I asked. My father did not answer. "Dad." "Elaine has it." "What does it do?" He swallowed. "It places $400,000 into a company reserve." "For Riverstone?" "A loan to Riverstone." "My money." "A temporary loan." "Secured by what?" He did not know. That was the first moment I understood how completely my mother had organized the moral language around the transaction. My money became a reserve. Miles's debt became a temporary loan. My refusal became division. Their deception became keeping options open. "Did Blue Veil know?" I asked. "Know what?" "That most of my sale proceeds would rescue Miles. I do not think it mattered to them. It mattered to me." He nodded. "I know. No, you know now because I caught it." My father's eyes filled. He looked older than he had the week before. "I am sorry." It was the first apology anyone had offered. It was also incomplete. "Are you sorry you signed it, or sorry I found it?" He looked at the phone. The green line moved with his breathing. "I do not know how to answer that." "Then do not ask me to comfort you." He closed the leather case. Before he left, he placed the draft agreement on my table. He did not ask me to keep his visit secret. He did not say he would correct the minutes. At the door, he turned. "Your mother thinks this is the only way to save Miles." "I am not a way." He nodded once and walked into the rain. I printed the transcript of our conversation. The gray folder was getting thick. For the next week, I did exactly what Lee told me to do. I communicated in writing. I copied every owner. I asked short questions that could not be answered with family feelings. Who authorized Blue Veil to tour the property? Who provided revenue reports? Who drafted the distribution instruction? Who approved the statement that I was withdrawing for health reasons? The answers arrived sideways. Miles said he had shared only preliminary material. My father said he had relied on my mother's notes. My mother wrote that a complicated situation could not be reduced to accusatory questions. Then she asked for a private family meeting. Lee advised me not to go. I went anyway. That was my mistake. I told myself I was giving my father a chance to correct what he had signed. I told myself my mother might speak differently without lawyers in the room. Mostly, I wanted one conversation where my family admitted the plan before I had to force the truth into public view. We met at my parents' house on a Thursday evening. My mother had set the dining table with cloth napkins and the good china. She had cooked pot roast, although nobody had mentioned dinner. There were 4 place settings. There was also a stack of papers beside my plate. The top page was a brochure from a hearing clinic. Beneath it was an article about listening fatigue. Beneath that was a printed checklist titled Supporting a Family Member Through Major Sensory Change. I sat down without touching any of it. "What is this?" I asked. My mother folded her napkin across her lap. "We want to understand what you are going through." "You could ask me. We have asked." "No, you have decided." Miles leaned back in his chair. "This is why talking to you is impossible now." My phone was propped beside my water glass. The live captions moved across the screen. "Because I disagree," I said. "Because every question becomes an attack." My father looked at Miles. "Let her finish." My mother reached for the brochure. "The point is that major hearing loss can cause exhaustion, isolation, and difficulty processing fast conversations. That is not a judgment. It is medical. I process documents for a living. Nobody said you cannot. You told Blue Veil I was leaving management because of my health. We said health was a factor. It is not." She gave me the patient smile again. "Bate, you do not always know how tired you are." That sentence frightened me more than the sale plan. It took an experience only I could measure and claimed authority over it. If I said I was capable, that became proof I lacked insight. If I became angry, that became instability. If I needed captions, that became confusion. I looked at my father. "Do you agree with this?" He did not answer quickly enough. My mother answered for him. "We all see changes." "What changes?" "You are suspicious. You document everything. You refuse ordinary help." "I document things because you created false minutes." Miles pushed away from the table. "There, that tone." "What tone?" "The one where you act like we are criminals. You used my name to present consent I did not give. We were trying to save 2 family businesses." "No, you were trying to save yours with mine." He stood. My mother told him to sit down. He did not. For several seconds, everyone spoke at once. The captions broke into fragments. "Family, pressure, ungrateful, years of work, not fair." I raised both hands. One person at a time. Nobody stopped. I watched their mouths move. My mother pointed toward the papers. Miles paced near the doorway. My father said something I could not catch. The room became the exact kind of place where hearing loss was hardest. Multiple voices, poor light. Anger moving faster than the captions. I felt panic rise, not because I did not understand the issue, but because they were using the conditions of the room to make understanding impossible. I stood. The voices stopped. "This meeting is over." My mother rose too. "You cannot walk out every time a conversation becomes difficult." "I can walk out when 3 people refuse to let me follow it. Nobody is refusing. You all just did." She stepped between me and the hallway. "Sit down, Bate." The words appeared clearly. I looked at her. "No," she lowered her voice. "If you leave now, Miles may lose everything." I picked up my phone. Miles chose his loan. Families do not talk like that. Families do not write plans to sell each other. My father said my name. I turned toward him. He held the Blue Veil draft in one hand. "What would make you consider it?" he asked. "Not what would repair the lie. Not what would make me feel safe. What price would move me toward the result they wanted?" "Nothing tonight," I said. My mother's face hardened. Then do not expect us to keep pretending this is only about documents. What else is it about? Your ability to see what is best for everyone. I left without eating. In the car, my hands shook so badly that I dropped the keys. I sat in the driveway until the porch light went dark. The caption app had saved the meeting. At home, I opened the transcript. It was messy in the middle, where everyone had spoken at once. The rest was clear. You do not always know how tired you are. We all see changes. Your ability to see what is best for everyone. I sent it to Lee with one sentence. They are building an incapacity story. She called me immediately. Yes, she said, and now we respond before they use it. The next morning, my audiologist wrote a short letter. It stated that my hearing loss affected access to sound, not my ability to understand language, and that captions were an appropriate communication tool. I hated needing the letter. I hated more that my family had made it necessary. Lee sent the letter with a formal demand. The family had to stop making medical representations about me. They had to preserve all records related to Blue Veil. They had to correct the false minutes. My father signed a correction that afternoon. Miles refused. My mother sent a message saying legal threats had destroyed trust. I read it twice. Then I laughed. It was not a happy sound. I barely heard it. I felt it in my chest. Trust had been destroyed, she said, by the document proving I could understand the documents she wanted me to sign. That was the day I stopped hoping for an honest private apology. If you have ever watched someone call your boundary cruel after their own behavior made it necessary, you know how disorienting that can feel. The rule sounds simple from the outside. Inside a family, it can take years to believe you are allowed to use it. The practical consequences reached Laurel Ridge before the legal correction reached everyone else. Nora called me on a Monday morning. Her face appeared on my office screen with the bright kitchen behind her. Elaine sent staff instructions, she said. She forwarded the email. My mother had told department leads to route major decisions through Miles until the ownership transition was complete. She wrote that I remained involved but might need additional communication support. There was no ownership transition. I drove to Laurel Ridge. When I arrived, Miles was in the small conference room with 2 Blue Veil employees. A floor plan covered the table. One of them was photographing the kitchen expansion notes in my handwriting. I stood in the doorway. This review is paused. Miles turned. They are only looking at company records. They already had the appointment. Then you cancel it. The Blue Veil employees packed their folders quickly. One apologized. The other asked whether Sarah Kim knew the meeting was happening. Miles said yes. I said no. They left without finishing the tour. Nora closed the conference room door. Miles waited until we were alone. You are making us look unstable. You brought buyers into a paused review. You are one owner. I am the managing member. For now, the captions showed those 2 words. For now, I looked at him. What does that mean? It means the company cannot function if you treat every decision like an attack. Did Mom ask staff to route decisions through you? She asked for continuity. Did you tell her to send that email? I agreed with it. I opened my laptop and removed his access to the data room, vendor portal, and booking reports. He watched the permissions disappear from his phone. You cannot do that. I can suspend operational access after unauthorized disclosure. I own 30%. You still own it. You do not get the passwords. His face went red. This place exists because of all of us. It is protected because somebody follows the agreement. He stepped closer. You think captions make you the smartest person in every room? No. They make it harder for you to change what happened after you leave the room. He walked out. That sentence traveled through the family before I got home. My father called it unnecessarily sharp. My mother called it humiliating. Miles called it discrimination against an owner. Lee called it accurate. We spent the next several days securing Laurel Ridge. Nora changed staff permissions. Our accountant created a separate approval path for distributions. Blue Veil confirmed in writing that no further review would occur without my direct participation. Then Sarah Kim sent me a private message. She asked whether I knew the proposed price for my interest was based on a family discount. I did not. Sarah explained that Blue Veil had discussed a higher figure during the first conversation. My mother and Miles had pushed the number down in exchange for a quick closing and easier access to the remaining shares later. The difference was not small. Their offer to me was a little more than half of what Blue Veil's own internal estimate suggested my interest could support. I felt the betrayal settle into a new shape. They were not only planning to sell my share, they were planning to make me grateful for less than it was worth, then lend most of that reduced amount to Miles. I asked Sarah why she was telling me. "Because your name was used in every conversation," she said. "And because I no longer know which statements came from you." "None of them did." She was quiet. "Then we need one meeting with everyone present." Lee agreed with conditions. The meeting would be at Blue Veil's attorney's office. Every document would be provided in advance. The conversation would be captioned. No one would summarize anything for me. My mother objected to all 3 conditions. Then Riverstone's lender gave Miles 8 business days to produce capital. She agreed. The meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. During that week, my family tried every language except the truth. My father sent an email about preserving what we had built. Miles sent a spreadsheet showing how many contractors would lose work if Riverstone failed. My mother mailed me a handwritten card. On the front was a watercolor of a mountain road. Inside, she wrote, "Please do not let one misunderstanding cost this family everything." One misunderstanding. I placed the card beside the 43-page transcript. The difference between them was almost absurd. One used 6 soft words. The other held the exact plan, the exact money, and the exact sentence she had spoken when she thought I could not hear. I did not answer the card. Instead, I prepared 3 questions for the Friday meeting. Who authorized the false minutes? Who decided my hearing loss should be used as the reason for my exit? Who believed $400,000 of my proceeds belonged in Miles's business? Lee told me I did not need to make a speech. "Ask the questions," she said. "Then let the records carry the weight." That suited me. I had spent my career drawing plans other people could build from. A good plan did not shout. It made the structure impossible to misunderstand. The conference room on Friday looked exactly like every room designed to make difficult choices feel ordinary. Gray carpet, glass walls, bottled water beside a clock I could not hear. Sarah Kim sat at one end with Blue Veil's attorney. Lee sat beside me. My parents and Miles took the other side. The pale blue folder waited in front of my mother. She had dressed carefully, navy jacket, pearl earrings. The expression she wore at church committee meetings when a decision had already been made and everyone else was being invited to agree. Sarah began by saying the purpose was to determine whether there was a valid path forward. The live captions appeared on a monitor at the end of the table. Every person could read them. My mother glanced at the screen, then at me. "We appreciate the accommodation," she said. The word accommodation landed like a favor. Sarah asked whether I had reviewed the proposed purchase agreement. "I have. Do you wish to sell your interest?" "No." Miles leaned forward. "Can we discuss the terms before she gives a final answer?" "That is my final answer," I said. My mother opened the blue folder. "Bait, we went over this slowly. This is the sale of your share. It solves everything." There was the sentence from the beginning of my story. Across from her, Miles had the yellow legal pad. Riverstone Rescue was still circled twice. My father looked at the table. The buyer's attorney asked what the blue folder contained. My mother said it held a revised purchase agreement and a family distribution plan. Lee looked at me. I nodded. "Before anyone reviews those," I said, "I have 3 questions." My mother closed the folder halfway. "This is not an interrogation. It is a business meeting." Sarah gestured for me to continue. I asked my first question. Who authorized the minutes stating that I verbally consented to a sale? My father lifted his head. I signed them. Did I consent? No. The word appeared on the monitor. My mother turned toward him. Warren, that is not the full context. It is the answer, he said. I asked the second question. Who decided my hearing loss should be given to Blue Veil as the reason I wanted to leave management? My mother answered. I described the pressure you were under. That was not the question. She looked toward Sarah. Beth has had a traumatic medical change. We were trying to make the process easier for her. Sarah did not respond. I repeated the question. My mother's voice sharpened. I wrote the language. The captions placed her answer beneath the first one. I asked the third question. Who decided that $400,000 from my sale proceeds would be loaned to Riverstone? Miles put down his pen. That was a family proposal. Whose proposal? Mine. Was it secured? We had not finalized that. Would I control the money? The company reserve would. Who controls the reserve in your draft? He did not answer. Lee opened the blue folder and read the relevant line. Miles would have sole authority to deploy the reserve for Riverstone obligations. Sarah's attorney stopped taking notes. My mother placed both hands on the table. This is being presented in the most hostile possible way. No, I said, it is being read. Then I took out the transcript. 43 pages made a soft weight when they landed on the folder. My mother's face changed before Sarah touched the first page. This is a live-caption transcript from the ownership meeting at Laurel Ridge, I said. The meeting used to support the false minutes. Miles looked at my phone. You recorded us. The caption app created text so I could participate. That was a private family conversation. It was an ownership meeting. My mother turned to Sarah. Automatic captions make mistakes. They do, I said. That is why I marked every unclear section. The complete statements match the parts everyone admits. I asked Sarah to read page 27. She found it. The room stayed still while her eyes moved down the page. She read silently at first. Then Blue Veil's attorney asked her to read the relevant lines aloud. Sarah did. If Beth sells her 40%, that covers the note and leaves her plenty. She continued. Her health, less responsibility, a clean exit. Then the line about summarizing the agreement before I could read it. My father closed his eyes. Sarah reached the highlighted sentence. She won't understand enough to stop us. My mother interrupted. That is not what I meant. I looked at her. What did you mean? She opened her mouth. Nothing appeared on the caption screen. For once, the silence was complete. Miles broke it. This is ridiculous. She clearly understood everything, so no harm was done. Lee turned toward him. The attempted transaction is the harm. He looked at me. You were never going to help me. I warned you about the loan. You wanted me to fail? No, I refused to become collateral after you did. My mother shook her head. Listen to yourself. You have enough money. Laurel Ridge is worth more than you ever expected. Miles is about to lose years of work. And that made my share yours? It made sacrifice reasonable. For me, for the family. I slid the blue folder back toward her. You did not ask for a sacrifice. You built a transaction that depended on me not understanding it. My father spoke quietly. She is right. My mother turned on him. Do not do this now. I did it before, he said. I signed the minutes I should not have. The captions carried every word. He looked at Sarah. Beth did not consent. She never said she wanted to leave. We used her hearing loss to make the story sound believable. My mother's chair moved back. You are destroying your son. No, my father said. We tried to use our daughter to prevent him from facing a debt he signed. Miles stood so quickly that the water bottle in front of him tipped over. Sarah's attorney asked him to sit down. He did not. What happens to Riverstone now? He demanded. Sarah answered before I could. Blue Veil is withdrawing from this transaction. My mother stared at her. You cannot make that decision over a family disagreement." "This is not a family disagreement," Sarah said. "We received false ownership minutes and inaccurate representations about a member's consent." She closed the purchase file. Blue Veil was finished. My mother looked at me as if I had taken something from her. "You knew this would happen. I knew the truth would change the deal. You could have corrected us privately." "I tried. You could still help your brother. I will not sell my share. I will not loan him my proceeds. I will not authorize anyone to speak for me." Each sentence appeared on the monitor. Miles finally sat down. My mother touched the transcript with one finger. "You kept all of this. I needed access to the conversation. You kept it to use against us." "No, I kept it because you counted on me not having it." That was the only line I had not planned. It was also the truest. Lee placed a final document on the table. It was not a sale agreement. It was a notice confirming that my management authority remained in effect, that Miles's operational access was suspended, and that all future owner communications required written attribution. My father signed the acknowledgement. Miles refused until Blue Veil's attorney explained that refusal would not restore his passwords or create a sale. My mother signed last. She pressed so hard that the pen tore the paper. Nobody raised a voice after that. The main fight ended not with a dramatic exit, but with 4 signatures beneath the truth. Mine was the only one that had never been missing. Riverstone's lender called the bridge loan 2 weeks later. Miles sold the completed model cabin and most of the undeveloped land. The sale covered enough of the debt to avoid bankruptcy, but the project was over. He blamed me in one long email. I read it once, forwarded it to Lee, and did not answer. My parents did not lose their home. They did lose the story that only my money could save him. Laurel Ridge remained open. The staff kept their jobs. The spring retreats stayed on the calendar. Nora and I hired an outside bookkeeper and required independent records for every owner decision. Under the written governance agreement, Miles remained a 30% owner, but he had no operational access. Those changes were not revenge. They were the cost of access after trust had been used as a shortcut around consent. My father wrote me a letter a month after the meeting. It was 6 pages, handwritten. He did not blame my mother. He did not blame Miles's deadline. He wrote that he had spent years calling himself the peacemaker, when what he really meant was that he asked the person with less power to absorb the damage. That sentence mattered to me. I did not forgive him immediately. I did meet him for coffee. We sat near a window. He faced me when he spoke. When the grinder started and the captions fell behind, he stopped and waited. It was a small thing. Small things were where trust had broken. They were the only place it could begin again. My mother never apologized. She left 3 voicemails about family healing. In each one, she spoke about pain on all sides. She never named the false minutes, the reduced price, the Riverstone loan, or the sentence on page 27. I sent one written response. Healing requires an accurate account of what happened. Contact will remain limited until you can give one. She called that cruel. I did not argue. 6 months later, I stood in the main hall at Laurel Ridge during our staff planning day. Rain moved across the long windows. I could not hear it the way I once had. I could see it. Nora spoke from the front of the room. Her words appeared on the large caption screen we had installed for guests and employees. Nobody rushed her. Nobody talked over the captions. Nobody treated access as evidence that I understood less. When it was my turn, I stood beside the screen. I told the staff that Laurel Ridge would remain independent. I told them we were adding 2 accessible guest rooms and a quiet meeting space designed for people who used hearing devices, captions, or visual communication. Then I looked toward the old timber beams I had fought to preserve more than 20 years earlier. My family had believed silence created an empty space where they could place their own version of my consent. They had confused not hearing every word with not knowing what was being done. The 43-page transcript now sat in a locked records cabinet at my studio. I did not keep it to relive the betrayal. I kept it for the same reason I kept building plans. A structure should show where the weight is carried. That transcript showed exactly where my family had tried to place theirs. It also showed the moment I stopped carrying it. My hearing did not return. My authority did. Those are not the same kind of loss, and they do not require the same kind of recovery. Sometimes the strongest boundary is not a louder answer. It is a clear record, a closed door, and a signature you refuse to give. What would matter more to you after a betrayal like this? An apology, changed behavior, or permanent distance? Whatever your answer is, make sure it belongs to you.